Okay, hi folks, Dennis Guzik back here with the Be the Ultimate podcast. Thank you for joining and listening to the ramblings of the old jarhead. So last week I discussed mentoring and how to find and work with a mentor. If you haven't listened to that podcast, I recommend you do, give you a more complete picture of mentoring. Today, I'm going to discuss how to be a mentor. That's something I've got quite a bit of experience with. First, what is mentoring? As I said last week, my definition of mentoring is when one person, usually a senior or more experienced person, assumes a teaching role with a more junior or inexperienced person for the primary purpose of bettering that person being mentored. Now, the mentor will also benefit as well. The key here is that it is a relationship between the two people. Why would you want to be a mentor? Well, one is I found huge satisfaction getting to know junior people and watching them reach their potential. Two is that if they work for your company, you're going to help provide that company with a better performing, faster rising employee. Three, by talking to those you mentor, you get a kind of a pulse check on what the more junior folks in the company are thinking. That could be a very beneficial thing. Who can be a mentor? Mentoring is not something reserved for senior managers to manage junior people, although that's probably the most common way of mentoring. But a junior person can be a mentor if the people more junior to that person within the organization. So a person with 3 years experience can take on board somebody with less than a year. That's a great thing. The new person gets to feel more at home within the company, and the junior person grows. As they say, there's no better learning experience than being a teacher. Good for everybody. Finally, senior people can act as mentors to less senior people. So the CEO can be a mentor to a senior vice president. This tends to be less common because of the time constraints on senior managers. And there's a misperception that senior folks don't need to be taught any longer. That's just not true. Everybody can learn. How do you become a mentor if there isn't a formal mentoring program where you are assigned someone to mentor, which I mentioned last week and said I really didn't like formal mentoring programs. Well, one way that I was fortunate to have frequently occur is when a junior person asks to speak to you about their career, and that discussion leads to a mentoring relationship. Another way to become a mentor is to spot talent in junior people. If you think you can help them develop, approach them with it and get to know them. This can be good for the organization as well as for that junior person. Now, the person you're mentoring can work for you, a separate part of the company, or even in a different company. You don't have to limit yourself to those who work for you, but it really helps if you understand that person's job. You can help them a whole lot more. If you're asked to mentor someone, think about your time and your own career goals. If you decide it has potential, the next step I recommend is that you speak to that person in person, if possible, to discuss it. Again, get back to this is a relationship, so let's see how that goes. The things you need to discuss before committing include what does the mentee hope to get out of the relationship? Is it career growth? Is it moving on to another field? Is it technical? Those are all questions you need to be asking. How often do you expect to meet? Is the mentee willing to take home homework assignments? In the end, you want to assess as to whether or not there's a connection that'll make this an enjoyable time that you spend together as well as a mutually beneficial relationship. If it appears that what the mentee wants you cannot provide, either technical skills or just don't have the time to do it, I recommend you be upfront about that and see if you can help that mentee find a mentor. As an example, I led an analytic organization, and if one of my employees wanted to improve their coding skills, and I can tell you that I am definitely not the person for that job. In that situation, I would see if I can find a mentor who can help them with that skill. If you both decide it is a good fit to take on a mentor-mentee relationship, here are a few tips for the mentor. First, set a schedule. For folks I've mentored, we plan on meeting every week. What usually happens is that turns into every other week due to commitments on both of our parts. A half hour to a full hour works best depending on your schedule. For other folks that I've mentioned that were outside my work, we plan on meeting once a month. Sometimes that goes to every other month, but it still turns out to be okay. If you're going to meet once a month, do it for at least an hour. I also like to schedule the meetings outside normal work hours. For example, before or after work or during lunch. It shows a commitment on the mentee's part, and they're less likely to get rescheduled due to other commitments. Prior to the meeting, set the schedule and prepare for each meeting. Go over the notes from the last meeting and what the mentee has said or areas they would like to discuss. Think about what you're going to talk about with that person. Plan to ask questions, and if appropriate, give homework assignments. Next, during the meeting, be honest with the mentee. If you see skills that they need to improve on, you owe it to them to tell them. It doesn't help if you see a big weakness that they don't see, and it's something that they're being evaluated on in their job. You owe it to them to let them know. You're a mentor, not a cheerleader. I had a young person I was mentoring once, and it became apparent that she did not like her job or her boss, and there were no other jobs within the company that she wanted, but she didn't have the initiative to move on. Her performance was going to decline because of her lack of motivation. So instead of encouraging her to do more, I helped her move on to another company. Finally, and tips for the mentor, you're not there to entertain the mentee. If the mentee is not prepared and just sits and listens while you teach, then you might want to discuss or reconsider the relationship, as it seems a little too one-sided. I mentioned homework. What does that mean? Typically, that means something to read. It can be as short as a quick article or long as a book. It has to be appropriate to what the mentee wants to learn. This also gives you a good barometer on how much the mentee is willing to put into the relationship. I once gave a small book to someone who enthusiastically took it, only never to see the person or get my book back. He eventually left the company. Homework can also be to tell your mentee to go talk to somebody else within the company with a particular specialty or on a particular topic. If that other person is senior to the mentee, you should make an introduction. An email introduction would be fine. To wrap it up, I have two things to be cautious of. First, if you're a senior person, you probably have information that the mentee doesn't have and shouldn't have. An example might be rates or some sort of salary information. Be careful that in the course of the conversation, you don't let that slip. And then the final caution is to be careful about allowing the discussion to slip into areas where you don't have expertise. For example, if the mentee says that they feels like they're getting ahead because of their depression, don't try to solve it. It's best that you recommend professional help. In the end, what makes mentoring successful is when both parties enjoy the time together and both benefit from the relationship. When you see that occurring, you know that you are a good mentor. So, takeaways: being a mentor can be a very rewarding and enjoyable experience. It's good for the company. It's good for you. It's good for the mentee. Give it a shot. It's a winning situation. That's it for now. Thanks for listening to the Old Jarhead Ramble. If you liked it, please subscribe. Stand by for next week, and we'll do this again. Bye.